who want to be Irish. We have several agenda items today. Because of the nature of the thing, there is no public here, so I won't bother with all the rigmarole that I usually do. And we don't have Mina here, so who's going to handle the roll call and all that stuff?
I am.
Okay, let's start with the roll call, Mr. Mark.
Koulibaly.
Aye.
Erickson.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Hintz. Kiefer. Almeri. Perry.
Aye.
Mitchell. Roth. Prop.
Here.
And Wojtek.
Here. And then do we have?
7 present.
Okay, thank you. I assume the mayor's going to join us?
She will not be here this evening.
Oh, okay. She
Is
came
the
in with it?
building?
Yes, she had another conflicting meeting.
Okay. Let's move on to the approval of the minutes from March 3rd. Do we have any additions, corrections, deletions to those?
Nope, I move approval.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All right. Moving on to item number 1, we have some news there. Do you want to, I will say what it is. Residential design standards variance to allow window closures on the front facade at 603 CP Avenue. And Mark, you said you have an update there?
Correct. Since the initial staff report had been sent out, our inspection division was able to make contact with the applicant and had some discussions with them. So we are asking at this time that we withdraw number 1. We will put it back on in the future. They've been working on some options for potential siding materials that could blend in and kind of fix some of the solutions that are out there. So for at this time, we're actually just going to ask for it to be withdrawn instead of postponing because we don't have a firm idea of when it may be placed back on.
So we just won't deal with it then.
Yep, so we're just going to ask, we're asked for a motion to withdraw.
Is there a motion?
I move to withdraw.
Second?
Second.
All right, I think you need to call a roll on that one.
I will. Sorry. Koulibaly,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Perry,
Aye.
Prop,
Aye.
and Wojtek.
Aye.
Pass 7-0.
Okay. Moving on to item number 2. A public hearing, conditional use permit request for an outdoor storage use at 3010 Bradley Street. Was there any site inspections for that one? Seeing none. We accept the staff report as part of the record. On to the staff.
Thank you.
Oh, there he is.
So this is a vacant piece of property. It's on the east side of Bradley Street, north of Waukau Ave. The surrounding area is mostly industrial and some commercial uses with an active railroad to the east of the site. It separates it from residential uses further east. Here's an aerial view of the subject site. Again, a vacant property, kind of an irregular shape. So Vinton Construction is proposing to use this site for outdoor storage of concrete and asphalt that will be crushed and recycled on the site. And they will also be storing some equipment on the site as well. Outdoor storage is a conditional use in the heavy industrial district, and again, this is a heavy industrially zoned property, so it requires a conditional use permit for outdoor storage. So in the eastern rear portion of the site is where that crushing and recycling area will be, and that gravel and concrete and asphalt will be stored. And then more towards the street, we have more towards the western portion of the site, there will be a gravel storage area where they will keep equipment, machinery, trailers that they use for the business. To the south of the site is an institutionally zoned property, which is used for a cemetery. So there is a buffer yard requirement along that property line. It's actually an increased buffer yard because there's a heavy industrial use for the crushing and recycling. So there is an increased buffer yard along with it being heavy industrial bordering an institutional property. They are showing a significant amount of landscaping. As you can see, there are existing cedar trees that do meet that landscaping requirement to provide that buffer from that institutional use. The other landscaping that they're required is going to be street frontage landscaping, and they are meeting those landscaping points for street frontages. And they'll just have that one access off of Bradley Street to the site, and they will use the driveway they're proposing for the cut or employee parking, as they'll only need a few stalls for that. And staff recommends approval of the conditional use permit. Well, the other thing is for the storage area itself, we will require 8-foot tall solid screening. And what they're showing is 8-foot tall chain link fencing with slatting. And it will have to be a pre-woven or interwoven slatted fencing to screen the entire storage area. And they're showing 8-foot tall fencing all the way around the storage area. So staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permit for outdoor storage with a condition that they completely screen the storage area with 8-foot tall solid fencing, and also that the chain link fencing be pre-woven or interwoven slatted fencing to be at least 90% opaque.
All right, thank you, Brian.
If I will just add one quick note, so this is a proposed long-term solution instead of the one down in the Sawdust District that we had dealt with a couple months ago. That one had a time limit placed within it, so Vinton started looking for a long-term solution. If this would be approved, instead of going to that Sawdust District site for a couple of months, they would be going here as their new permanent home for the facility.
Oh, okay. Oh, great, good.
Good to know. Technical questions from the commission. Kathy?
Yes, I didn't get out there. What are the two buildings just north? The photo, I think, showed two buildings. Yeah, what are those structures in the yellow?
Yep, both are industrial uses.
Yeah,
I think
but what?
Oshkosh Corp uses one of them.
I believe the other's like an auto body.
Yeah, it's an auto-related
body?
use
Auto
for the
shop
other
of some
place.
sort.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Other technical questions?
So the applicant did talk to Brian just a little bit before the meeting, so he did prepare kind of some comments that if
Okay.
this board had questions, but he was relatively happy with the recommendation as stated.
Okay.
All right. Nobody here to speak, but we can, in our discussion, we can ask those questions if we have them.
Correct.
So let's close public hearing, and then we need a motion to adopt the findings and recommendations.
Motion to adopt the findings and recommendations and the staff report?
As stated by the staff report.
I don't have my little sheet.
That's all right, we got it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
I'm glad it's moving off of the Sawdust District.
Yeah, this looks to be a better long-term home.
Yeah.
All right, seeing none, let's vote. Call the roll, Mr. Mark.
Kulabali,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Perry,
Aye.
Prop,
Aye?
Wojtek.
Aye.
Carries 6-0. Only six of
Yes.
us.
Okay. You have the next two items listed together. Do you want to do it one at a time, or how should we do this?
I think we're going to do a single presentation for both items. Then it'll be a separate vote on the two of them.
So I'll read them both off then. A public hearing, review and acceptance of the 2020 to 2024 Consolidated Plan, 2020 Annual Action Plan, and Citizens Participation Plan, followed by a public hearing, analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. No, there's no site inspections on this one, so on to you.
Good afternoon. Every 5 years, the city is required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to prepare a 5-year consolidated plan, which assesses the community's affordable housing, community development, economic development, and strategic planning needs. These needs and priorities are then addressed annually through the submittal of the city's annual CDBG Annual Action Plan, which identifies activities and projects that will be accomplished with the CDBG funds. In the summer of 2019, the city hired Urban Design Ventures to assist in preparing the consolidated plan, the annual action plan, citizens participation plan, and analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. They held several one-on-one interviews and round table discussions with stakeholders and city staff. We also created citizen online surveys that were available through SurveyMonkey and Polco. Paper questionnaires were also included with all the city utility bills over a 1-month period. From all of those citizen surveys, there were around 1,100 responses that were received. So then, based on all that input, citizen input and data, which a lot of the data that you might see in the plans is pre-populated by the HUD templates that we have to use online, the plans were developed. So the 2020 to 2024 consolidated plan identified 6 strategies to address priority needs in Oshkosh to address low to moderate income persons and households: housing, homelessness, other special needs, community development, economic development, and administration, planning, and management. For the 2020 CDBG program year, the city anticipates receiving $841,000 in funds. Activities and programs being recommended include continuing the city's owner-occupied housing rehab program, assist income-eligible owner-occupied property owners with repairs that have received an exterior code violation notice from the city, creation of new affordable rental units, infrastructure improvements in the public right-of-way associated with construction of new LMI affordable housing. LMI is low to moderate income. Acquisition of properties for slum and blight removal. Assisting public service agencies with programs and activities that directly benefit low to moderate income persons and households. Fair housing education, outreach and advocacy, and program oversight. As part of the preparation of the consolidated plan, Oshkosh must demonstrate to HUD that it also affirmatively furthers fair housing by conducting an analysis of impediments to fair housing choice. Those are a lot of words. This plan is designed to act as a planning tool for city staff, developers, and other interested parties, and provides the necessary framework to reduce any identified impediments to fair housing choice over the next 5 years, based on the available data and public input. And again, a lot of the data that is pre-populated in the HUD template, so we don't have a lot of control over some of it. The consultant identified 4 impediments to fair housing: the need for fair housing education and outreach, need for affordable housing, need for accessible housing, and public policy amendments such as revising the zoning ordinance. City staff will review these impediments and determine the best approach to address these, either by city staff or with outside agencies, developers, and our housing partners. The development of all of the plans requires citizen participation and input. Now, unfortunately, with the COVID-19, we were not able to allow any citizens into the room this evening, but we still need those citizens' input, and I have reached out to several stakeholders that have been on my list to let them know to please get their written comments into me at their earliest convenience. So the citizen participation plan is a way for all citizens to exercise their voice and influence decisions that affect the community, neighborhoods, and their way of life in Oshkosh. The updated citizen participation plan meets or exceeds HUD regulations. So our next steps are, we're asking the Plan Commission to make a determination of necessity that the proposed programs and activities in the consolidated plan, action plan, citizen participation plan, and the analysis of impediments to fair housing choice are consistent with the city's comprehensive plan as amended, official maps, and other planned activities of the city. Then the plans will go forward to the Common Council on March 24th prior to submitting to HUD. The city is accepting public comments until April 6th, and those comments should be submitted to me in writing or via email, and they will be attached to each respective plan as an exhibit and submitted to HUD. So that's a lot shorter than what all of those 200-page documents are, so does anybody have a question?
Any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah,
Adam.
and maybe this is beyond your involvement, but the 1,100 survey responses.
Yes.
Do you have demographic information for those to understand who?
No. No.
So we don't know if there are actually individuals from the low and middle income population or individuals experiencing homelessness that
No.
gave us feedback.
No, we did not take the any of the surveys returned and populate them onto a map because we did not really ask for addresses. That was an option, so there's really no way to know.
Were the two done in waves? I mean, why one Polko, one Survey Monkey?
The consultant wanted to do the Survey Monkey because that's what they use, and the city prefers using the Polkos, so we decided to do both, to give citizens the option of doing whatever they wished.
Okay, since you brought up the consultant, I have to go there. So they gave a very unimpressive presentation
At the joint
at the
workshop.
joint workshop.
Yes.
And yeah, I don't think it was the A team that was sent in here. And I'm just curious, how were they chosen, and how long are we contracted with them? Maybe that's beyond your role.
No, we did a request for proposals,
Okay.
and they were the only ones that responded.
Okay.
So we checked their background and checked their references, and they were acceptable, so we proceeded.
Okay.
We are contracted with them through submittal of and approval by HUD of the plans.
Okay.
And I can say, staff working with them on some of their interview questions. There was other members, senior members of the organization that were here doing a lot of the research and populating the information in the plan, as well as the individuals that attended some of the other meetings.
That's good to know. And that costs $49,000, correct?
Yes, I believe it was less than 50, yes, for all of the plans.
Okay, and sorry, I'm almost done. The interviews, just curious how the list got created. You mentioned stakeholders, just curious where they come from or how that gets determined.
We created a list of stakeholders based on public service agencies that we currently fund in our block grant program.
Okay.
We created a list of hopefully a representation from all the local religious organizations, public service, and social services, Department of Health and Social Services, also realtors. So it was a diverse group of people that were interviewed to come up with public input and what our community needs are.
Thank you.
Other questions for Darlene of a technical nature? Go ahead, Mohammed.
Yeah. For the rental unit, do you get input about the number of bedroom from the survey participants, or is that up to the partners?
The project in question that we are looking to fund with our 2020 block grant program is the Cabrini project over on Merritt Avenue. So they are also applying for various federal funds that will regulate how the bedrooms, the number and quantity of bedrooms. So the city will be assisting with 10 of those units. And so we don't really have a lot of say on the number of bedrooms. I believe most of them will be 1 and 2 bedroom. I believe there's a couple of them that might be 3 bedroom, but those will be more market rate rents, I believe, instead of low to moderate income.
I say because I personally feel there is a shortage of 3-bedroom down.
Yes.
If that will be expressed or not.
But according to a lot of the federal guidelines, 1 and 2 bedrooms are in need as well. So, and I believe the space, to accommodate as many units as possible within the space, they are going with more 1 and 2 and a few 3s.
Other technical questions? Go ahead, Lindsay.
So under the different housing, so there's like the housing strategy and then goals. Are there more specific measurables within those goals listed anywhere? Like, for example, you have encouraged the construction of new affordable renter and owner occupied housing units. Does it say like how many?
No,
You just
no. It's just a guide for the city to use in working with developers as they are coming forward with development projects.
so these goals are just kind of overarching goals, and then objectives kind of.
Correct.
Okay. And then one more.
Go ahead.
For the public comment, so for people to send you comments either by mail or email, is that in lieu of having a public hearing here, or are there other?
That is a technical question that HUD will have to answer for me at some point once we submit. Because of the health advisory, we were not afforded the opportunity to let citizens in that may have wanted to. But public input can still be submitted by written comment or email and still be accepted and entered into the record.
And how is that promoted for people to know about?
It was in the initial public ad that we published, and I did send out an email also to the public service agencies and so forth to let them know that City Hall was closed to the public, but please get your comments in by April 6th.
Thanks.
Excellent. Other technical questions? All right.
Motion.
I can close the public hearing with, I have to open the public hearing, but there's really no public hearing outside of written comments. So then the public hearing is open and closed at the same time. And then we need a motion to adopt the findings and followed by discussion.
For we'll do 3 and then 4.
Yep. We still need a motion to adopt the findings.
I'll make a motion to adopt the findings in the report.
Second.
All right, discussion on number 3, acceptance of the consolidated plan and annual action plan and citizens participation plan. Go ahead, Michael.
I'll just real quick. I know that we're constrained by what's required by HUD, and obviously we put out an RFP. If we only get one group, we're going to be somewhat constrained by that. But I do hope the next time we go around this, and this is coming from a land use perspective, to really get an understanding of the impediments to fair housing in this town. I think we really need to ensure we have input from the individuals actually experiencing that, because any plan that derives or comes from a place where we don't know if we have their input is going to be imperfect. I don't mean that as a critique. I mean that as something we can do moving forward, hopefully next year with whatever consultant we have, or next time we do this with whatever consultant we have.
5 years.
5 years, okay. Hopefully we're all survived the pandemic.
So be sitting even farther away. Separate. Other comments, questions?
Well, it's just sad that we have so little money,
Yeah, it's a culture.
because we have such great need. And the money is just going to touch the surface of,
Yes.
but I think it's aimed at the right things. And as Lindsay says, we need measurables, but there's so little money, it's hardly worth obsessing over.
Every year when we're doing our action plan, we can, look at those strategies identified. And then when we're also preparing our performance report at the end of each year, we can look at those goals that we may have been able to accomplish that also relate back to the consolidated plan.
And I would remind Plan Commission, it's not the only program we use for affordable housing in this city. We do have our neighborhood funding through the TIF district extensions that we're allowed to use on some of our neighborhood programs. So we have a lot of similar programs to CBDG that the city's operating through the planning department and our Great Neighborhoods program, which we spend approximately lately like $400,000 to $500,000 additionally a year through those programs on affordable housing initiatives as well. We use similar requirements to HUD. I'm not going to say they're exactly the same, but trying to make sure people don't spend more than 30% of their income on housing-related expenses for owner rehabs, curb appeal, outside, fix up those house. So we have programs beyond just CBDG that we do try to spend money on. It's still not a lot of money. I wish we had a lot more. State law is actually looking at changing the TIF extension statute instead of being able to expand them for 1 year for affordable housing to 3 years for affordable housing, which would help generate quite a bit of additional money for staff to do even more for affordable housing and workforce housing programming.
In my other life, I'm on the board of Oshkosh Healthy Neighborhoods, and we talk about this all the time. I think, just to your point, I think that's correct. I also think we as a city need to do a better job of publicizing those opportunities for people to use them, because I think they're underutilized.
And to that note, we were supposed to this past Monday have a lunch and learn with a lot of individuals from the public to help promote them further. Unfortunately, under current circumstances, we've had to delay that. But we've been kind of thinking that same thing. Our hope is to have a lunch and learn at some point yet this year to do a better job marketing our programs, and in the future have 1 or 2 lunch and learn opportunities per year to help further market those programs.
Support that effort.
Both from a block grant perspective and a city perspective of the programs we operate. So we want to get all that information out there as much as we can.
Thank you.
Yeah, from the city's perspective, do you follow the HUD plan when you're doing your own thing? Or I guess how do we ensure we're moving together?
So I would say a lot of the programs are very similar.
Yeah.
So, in large, we're following kind of a similar guideline to the HUD. The TIF statute's a little bit different, but really we're still working on affordable housing issues. A lot of the programs, like I said, are very similar. They operate a rental rehab or a owner-occupied rehab program. We operate additional funding for an owner-occupied rehab program. So we're working towards those same goals. We're not kind of just off doing our own thing. We're trying to still address affordable housing within Oshkosh.
Right. The city's CDBG program is targeted toward low to moderate income families, where the city's housing programs are targeted to those that are above that income eligibility under the federal guidelines, so that everybody has an opportunity to take advantage of some of that funding.
So some of just to kind of echo you, some of the funding requirements for block grant are very, very, very low. And there's a segment of individuals that still need assistance and help that don't qualify for those. So we try to work, when we have applicants that come in, we try to work between programs to figure out what's the best use of city funds. CBDG for this individual, or can we save CDBG money for this person that really needs it and use some of the city funds because you qualify for this program, or vice versa.
Other thoughts or questions before we vote? All right. This is for
Kulabali?
number This is for
Number
number
three.
three.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Harry,
Aye.
Wojtek,
Aye.
Prop.
Aye.
Carried 6-0. Item 4. So we'll need another motion and second.
Motion to adopt the findings as stated in the staff report.
Second.
Any discussion, further discussion? Is
Second?
there any further discussion? Seems we- All right, let's call the roll on that one, too.
I was gonna. make
Oh,
a
go ahead,
comment.
I'm sorry, Kathy.
Now we're talking about impediments to fair
Correct.
housing.
Yeah,
And I did understand, I did not get to the workshop, but I understood it was underwhelming. And
Not sorry.
I'm glad I didn't get there. But I found the document really interesting. I didn't expect to think it was interesting. But,
Well, that's good.
reading through it, there were a lot of things in there. Matter of fact, I printed out a few pages because I wanted to have them, a list of public housing or low-income housing in the city. I had never actually seen a list like that. And so I found that really useful, partly because I'm working with a family that needs this kind of housing. And as Mamadou said, they need a 3-bedroom house or apartment, something, but you can't find them. There's just almost none. And so I thought maybe the firm wasn't didn't do the right things or didn't meet Michael's standards, which I might agree with if I knew more. But they identified the right things. And maybe they didn't have stakeholder, who knows how it was put together, but nobody can argue, I think, about the results, about the impediments that they listed, and as well as what was listed in the item 3 thing. But again, the discouraging thing is these are impediments not only to fair housing, but to decent, safe, affordable housing. Irrespective of is there any discrimination against any group. And it comes down to money, that there just isn't enough money, and developers can't afford, I think, to build these kinds of apartment units because they can't make money on it. And, there's historic tax credits and there's this and that, but I just don't think there's sufficient incentive to help developers get to the point where they can put money into units and then make a decent profit. I don't know what the answer is, because I think the feds quit funding, according to Justin, I wish he were here, they quit funding public housing maybe in the 1980s. Public housing we have in the city, if I'm not mistaken, I think was built many, many years ago. And there's no more federal money for it, because that would have been an option for money. So having said that, I don't know if they were the right people to do the plan, but I ended up liking what they came up with.
All right, other thoughts or questions before we move on? Item number 4. All right, let's do so.
Coulibaly,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Perry,
Aye.
Prop,
Aye?
Wojtek.
Aye.
Carries 6-0.
I do have copies of the plans, of the draft plans, if anyone would like a copy too, so,
Yeah, I had one.
okay. Thank you.
All right, moving on to item number 5. This is also a public hearing, text amendments to the zoning ordinance. There are no site inspections, obviously. We do accept the staff report as part of the record.
Do you want staff to go through these one at a time? Do you want to just open up for questions if you have specific questions on them? It's a lot of kind of what we've been doing, this new code 2017. There's things we've learned that need to be cleaned up. There's things that we've learned that just don't work quite as well as we thought they would and wanted to make changes. So what is the body's preference? You want us to go through them line by line? Or do you just want to ask questions you have questions on?
Fine with questions if people are comfortable with that.
I'm fine with just questions.
Me too. All
They
right,
seem pretty straightforward.
and many of them are things we've already spoken about.
Correct. A lot of these are things that we've workshopped under the last, 6+ months and discussed. I will want to point out probably the big one that's in here that I don't want overlooked is that parking exemption for some of the urban areas. I know we workshopped this a number of times. We've included the maps in here that we workshopped and talked with you through. We've kind of identified those 3 areas of the city where previously they were parking exempt. Code change, now they're required parking, they're in non-conforming status. It's hurt the ability for some of those businesses to make and update changes, so we're trying to rectify that. They're still required to provide parking for residential, which would mirror our current kind of downtown parking standards. So that's probably one of the larger changes that's in this section that is not a cleanup. That is a new section of the code that we thought would address some of those parking issues we have.
Open it up for questions. Go ahead, Kath.
I don't remember if we already voted on design standard changes, like the windows. Our window question, which always comes up, was on front facades.
Correct.
Did we already vote on changes on that?
We had removed the side facade requirements maybe a year or so ago, but we have not proposed any changes to the front facade. I will say staff has been working with local builders and the development community on some proposed changes to how we do, especially new house design standards, that I would anticipate in the next couple of months we're going to be bringing forward to a workshop to show you. We've been proposing, working with the Builders Association, maybe going to like a point-based system instead of a straightforward window door requirement, but that would only apply to new construction homes.
So staff feels that our current ordinance then is sufficiently workable.
I would say at this point in time, we have not identified a better solution. We're continuing to evaluate what may be a better option than the current system
Okay.
for infill housing and remodels and stuff like that. But we feel at this time it's probably still appropriate to require those design standards variants, because I think this body has done a lot of really good work helping work through unique challenges with different property owners. And I think by the benefit of having them come to this board is it gives the opportunity for that discussion and that ability to work through it.
Okay.
Brian, you want to tell us what you know?
I think Mark touched on that. That's the biggest change is that parking exemption overlay. A couple other minor cleanups as far as, for one example, would be applicability to make sure that actually one big change for applicability is for storage uses. We will no longer be requiring pedestrian and bicycle access for those because those are vehicle oriented. So we're removing that from the applicability section. There's a change for the shoreland setbacks. Right now we can require a land provision up to 75 feet to provide consistency with the state code. We're no longer requiring more than 50 feet for that shoreland setback.
Yeah, that's one that the DNR had brought to our attention, that provision was out of line with what their code requirement is, and asked us to update our code. Just to touch briefly on some of the other ones, there's a bunch of corporate business stuff that's added in here. Obviously, at the time we created that, there was a bit of a time-sensitive nature, so we got the district established, but we never went through and updated all the other sections that had addressed it. We've been using basically the business park standards. So now we've had time, we went through, added corporate business park into all those other sections. Some of these other items are cleanups for issues we've dealt with in the past. For example, the urban industrial setback, a 25-foot second for urban industrial is not relevant. The point of urban industrial is to have industrial in your urban center, which a 25-foot setback, like when we dealt with block iron, was excessive. We all kind of noticed that was too large. So trying to clean that up. Address the pole height issue that we've dealt with in the past with a number of light poles. So just trying to make the code more workable to the current, style of development and the issues we've been dealing with.
Okay, need a motion to adopt the findings and recommendations?
Motion to adopt the finding and recommendation as stated in the staff report.
Second.
I would just like to start by saying I appreciate staff's willingness to understand that this was not a perfect document when it was created, and that I think you've been flexible and heard feedback from developers and others about ways to make this more workable. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
That note, the parking stuff is great. It makes perfect sense. I mean, that's such a disincentive to urban development if they have to have a giant parking lot, and it's ugly and it just, it doesn't make sense. So awesome change.
Thank you.
Other thoughts? All right, then let's call the roll.
Yes, it's all good.
Coulibaly,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Perry,
Aye.
Prop,
All right.
Wojtek.
Aye.
Carries 6-0.
Any other business?
That is it.
All right, for some reason I thought this meeting might go till Thursday, just given the length of the stuff, but we didn't. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Nay, we're done.